Eu sou o Otto, você está assistindo World of Auto e hoje a gente vai entrevistar um fotógrafo bem respeitado no USA. O nome dele é CHAZ CRUZ, ele é um educador e ele participa de palestras do mundo inteiro. E ele mora aqui no Brooklyn, em Nova York, e a gente vai fazer a nossa primeira entrevista ao vivo com ele na casa dele. Vamos lá! There we go.
Buddy.
What's up?
Good to see you. Come on in, man.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, man?
Good. Could you introduce yourself? What's your name?
My name is CHAZ, CHAZ CRUZ. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I've been a wedding photographer for about 11 years now. I started my business in San Diego, and then now I've been in New York for about 8 years, been shooting.
And how did you start your career? And how did you get involved with photography?
I actually started when I was in my last year of college. I was not a very good student, so I took a photo class because I was an art major, and then I fell in love with the art. And then at the time I saw some really cool wedding photography online, and I saw how happy the people were in the photos, and I realized I wanted to be that guy behind the camera making those people happy themselves. So right after college, I went to a photo school in Massachusetts, and then I did my best and graduated in a year, and then I started my business in 2007.
Awesome!
Yeah,
that was the year that I was born.
Perfect. See, I knew it would be perfect for us.
So you said you started in California?
I did, yes, San Diego.
Okay. And when did you move back here to New York?
I moved here end of 2011, so November 2011. Remember, I moved right after Thanksgiving, the holiday of Thanksgiving.
How was your childhood like? What did you like at school, the subjects?
My childhood was pretty cool. I actually I was born in Hawaii, but I grew up in Los Angeles. And then I lived really close to my family, so a lot of my cousins, I should say. So when we grew up, we were very close-knit, but when we were in school, so my favorite things to do were, I loved art, so that was kind of what made me turn into art when I went in college, but one of my favorite subjects was math. I thought I was very good at it. As I got older, not so good, but when I was a little younger, I loved it, so that was my favorite, for sure.
And what did you want to be when you were a kid?
When I was a kid, my dad was in the Navy at the time, so I wanted to be in the Navy as well. But as I grew up, as I said, with everything else, you kind of realize you don't want to do that. So when I was in elementary school, I believed I wanted to be an architect.
An architect?
Yeah, because I love math, I love drawing, so I kind of put those together in terms of I would always be sketching places new houses for my family to live, all this stuff too. But so that was kind of what I wanted to be until I kind of went to college.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So when did photography come into your life?
Photography came into my life, I think actually it was in high school. I was taking a film class where we developed our own images, and I remember I wasn't very good at it at the start just because I was that kind of guy who needed instant gratification, kind of what we need now, with Instagram and stuff like that. So I wanted Instagram 15 years ago. No, I was shooting film, and then that's when I first kind of got the bug, but it didn't come until college when I was telling you before, when I kind of went to a photo class where they gave us a digital rebel for our first class, and that's when it was the first time I shot digital. I didn't know there was a digital way of shooting back in the day. This makes me sound really old, but that's kind of that was the second part when it was college, but the first time was in high school.
That's cool.
Thanks.
You are very artistic.
Thank you. Thanks, Otto. You're gonna be ahead of the game for me because you're doing it at like 8 years old. I only started when I was in high school, so it took me a long time to get artistic.
Well, you did film school.
Yeah.
You did film school. You did art.
Well, I wanted to be an architect, but
so
I didn't do architecture school. No, thank goodness. Actually, when I went to college, I was a computer science major. That was my major. But I told you I got bad at math as I grew up, so I started failing all my classes. And that's when I went to art, because I was like, you know what? There's more girls in art. This may be a little later to talk about. There were no girls in computer science, so I said, I'm gonna go move over.
Just some nerds.
They're probably doing very well in money, but at the time I was like, there's nothing to talk to. No girls to talk to here. So. But that's for another conversation.
Can you define photography?
I don't think I can define it myself, just because there's so many facets of photography in general. Obviously I can define wedding photography, which I think that's obviously my forte, my specialty, but in terms of weddings, I think amazing wedding photography is just like showcasing the people and just like having the best time, to not forget that besides all the detail and all the glamour, the one thing you want to showcase is the love, and I think that's what a great wedding photography should be defined as.
And what makes a good photo?
What makes a good photo? Definitely clean. A clean photo is always good, but I think in terms of what we were talking about with weddings, I think the emotion is always amazing, or the intent, I think, is a good way I should explain it, because I know with a lot of things I shoot, I kind of like to do a lot of setups. I like to do things a little more stylized, but the intent of it is like, trying to showcase my vision or what we collaborate with my couples. So I think what makes a good photo is showcasing the realism or the intent of trying to create something magical for your couple.
And what makes a good photographer?
What makes a good photographer? Definitely there's something you can't put your finger on in terms of a good photographer, because I've seen a lot of photographers come and go, seen their work, but there's always this like magical feeling to the shot where there's no way you can explain it. You kind of just like, they got it. So it's undefinable, so that's a hard one for me to answer. So yeah, undefinable. I guess that's an answer.
Alright, undefinable. So there are many things that a photographer should know, but what do you think would be something really important for them to know?
I think the one thing they should always know is to be true to their own vision. I think that's one thing photographers lack or lose, is when you first start shooting, like, this could be your case where you're so creative because you just want to create something really amazing. But as you learn more about photography, more experience, you become super technical. And then as you become too technical, you forget the creativity that you started as artistic. Exactly. So I think one thing that every photographer should know is to always go back to that creative vision. Like, the technique is always going to be the back of your hand. You're going to know it through and through, but always trying to go back to not forgetting what you knew at the start, how you felt when you first took a photo. That's something you should always strive to go back to and learn again.
So how did you get into the wedding photography business?
After my photo school in Massachusetts, I went back to San Diego, and I was trying to shoot weddings, trying to put my portfolio up, and since I had no work really, nobody really wanted to hire me. So I ended up going looking for work, and then I found a job opening for an editor at a studio in La Jolla, in a beach town in San Diego. I ended up applying, getting the job, and they loved my work that they ended up hiring me as an associate photographer. I photographed there for about 2 years under the guide of my photographer, my lead, my boss. His style was a little bit more, I'd say practical, a little bit more traditional, because we're shooting like high school seniors, family portraits, very like rich people. So I learned how to talk to rich people, which is kind of nice. But at the same time, it wasn't really the vision I wanted. So at the same time, we were also shooting weddings for the studio. So I was learning about getting my craft, getting some portfolio work in. At the same time, building all that work from the studio was able to propel me to have a body of work to show prospective couples. So whenever I was kind of putting my work out there, it kind of built my first wedding. My first year I shot, I think, 6 weddings. That was 2007. Second year I shot 12 weddings, which was 2008. A lot of them I did for free because I had, couldn't charge a lot of money yet.
Yeah.
And then my third year was I used those 18 weddings I shot before and all that work that I had from that studio. I used that to like advertise myself, show my work. Then I ended up getting 30 weddings my third year, and that's when my business like kicked off, like in 2009.
And what would you say like the difference between like weddings and in San Diego and in New York?
Well, San Diego is definitely a lot more traditional in terms of how weddings are. It's very, we do a lot of Catholic masses and ballrooms. So that was the big reason I left San Diego, is because I was just getting bored of the style of weddings. I hate saying that, but it's kind of true. People know that in California. But what I loved in New York, because I've been going to New York for when I was in photo school and just visiting, and then just the amount of culture and people, like the venues. Like, I think one of the things was just like, there's so many different religions here, which I think is probably the most beautiful thing about the world, is being able to see like different types of weddings from like I shot a Muslim wedding, I've shot Jewish weddings, I've shot Christian, Catholic, Baha'i, I forgot all the different religions, like non-denominational obviously, of course too, but it's so cool to be able to see that and seeing so much diversity, and that's what I love about New York style weddings.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what would be a really important tip that you got?
When I was starting, kind of what I told you about, like the what I think a photographer should know. I got this tip when I was in photo school about starting creative and then being too technical, and then finding that balance between that creativity and that technique, and then making that your own. I think that was that one tip where I pay it forward when I was telling you the same thing, and I've never forgotten that from when I started my photo career.
Cool. So what would be an advice or tip that you would give for somebody that's just starting their photography career?
I'd definitely give a wedding photography related advice tip I should say. I would say don't lose the happiness that comes along with this job. I think one thing is, we can photograph and get amazing, the experience is going to come no matter what. You're going to have a lot of that, obviously. But one thing is after a couple of years, you kind of get tired of the repetitiveness. But the thing is, like, couples are always different. Like, everybody's different. That's hopefully their first wedding that they're getting married at, that you're photographing. So to bring that joy that you have in this career and this vocation, I really like to call it, is something that will exude and show in your work, because everybody will remember the fun they had with you as a photographer, as opposed to the photos will always be there, but it's the memories that they can't there's no picture of you just having a good time with them, making them laugh, having just like all those little things that are going to remember, that why they refer you, why they remember you, why they'll still call you, why they want to be your friend after the wedding. It's like, those are the things I would always advise to people, is like, be a friend first. Be a friend with a camera, as I like to tell my couples. I'm a friend with a camera, and I'm going to make sure you get the best work, but also have the most fun you've ever had.
Cool.
Yeah. You're welcome.
So thank you for inviting us to your house.
Thanks.
And
happy to have you.
Thank you for answering all the questions.
Of course,
Se você gostou desse vídeo, dá uma joinha, subscribe e vê os outros vídeos que a gente fez de entrevista. E ele não tá entendendo nada que eu tô falando agora.
High five, buddy. High five, buddy. Very nice.
Ready? Então hoje a gente vai ir... Começa... The rabbit hole.
Okay, let's go. I'm ready.
What makes...
No.
I was ready. I was like, let's go.